Like the other day, I was showing my kid like pictures, just like old pictures from like when I was a kid and stuff. There's like a picture that my dad is like operating on somebody.
Wow.
And like the page over, he's working at a gas station in Florida, minimum wage.
Yeah.
It's like the contrast, you know?
You are listening to the Midweek Redemption Podcast, a resource from Redemption City Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan. For more information about our church, please visit our website at redemptiongr.org.
Well, hello, Redemption City. My name's Josh. You're listening to the Midweek Redemption Podcast, and I am doing my very first Zoom interview with the international man of mystery, Johnny Ansari. Johnny, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
We were laughing earlier because we are both wearing hats. It's like a hat hair kind of day, I guess, for both of us, but we're on Zoom, so that you can get away with that on Zoom, I think.
Yep. I had to be on several calls this morning, and this was kind of my, safety hat. Literally.
Yes, you got to have one nearby. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, we're doing these 3-2-1 interviews as a just kind of a way to have each other church family stories in front of us, stay connected during this time where we're all so spread out and isolated and all that. It's the 3-2-1 interview is 3 people, 2 places, and 1 experience that have kind of most shaped or influenced the person that you are today. It's just kind of a way to get to know your story without, having to start at the very, very beginning and, go through the kind of hit the highlights, the ways that God has broken in to your story and all that. So yeah, I'm excited. I met you once during my candidate process, in person, and then I've connected with you a few times, on Sunday in the sound booth and stuff, but I'm excited to kind of hear more about your story. And I've heard bits and pieces from other people about some of the legends, the Johnny Ansari legends and stuff. So I'm excited.
Things?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All good things. All very good things. So,
okay.
Yeah, excited to hear your story. And I could jump in. You could start anywhere in there. 3-2-1, 1-2-3.
So what should I start with first? I kind of,
whatever be easiest to talk about. Would it be easy to talk about the 3 people and just do it in order, or would you want to?
Yeah, let's do it in order.
Okay.
So what's the first one then?
Yeah, the 3 people that you'd say most shaped or influenced the person you are today.
Yep. This is I don't really have a superhero kind of person that I kind of admire and look after.
Sure.
So I'd have to closely say it's probably closer to family than anything else.
Yeah.
Probably right off the back, probably is my mom.
Uh-huh.
Just because she's so what do you call it? Adaptable.
Uh-huh.
Different scenarios, different situations, life's changed. She can just adapt and kind of be in it.
Wow.
And I think it's kind of rare to have that ability, because a lot of the times, when things for example, this pandemic right now,
yes,
people are breaking down and stuff. And there's good reasons for it, for sure. But there's also, I guess, not to worry too much and kind of be in the moment and know that it'll be okay.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. That's an awesome testimony about your mom. So you're saying she was pretty just down to ride. She didn't get too anxious. She would just kind of.
She's definitely. This is going to sound contradictory, but she's definitely the one that worries a lot.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, she makes it through everything like a super.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you feel like she's her worry is kind of preparing for scenarios? So she's when that happens, she's kind of already thought about it.
Like a future plan kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. As long as we have food, as long as we have something something's in place, I think we should be good. And I think I kind of pick up on that too. It's almost like I want to use my survival skills, because when you don't use your survival skills, it's not fun.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Are you familiar with the Enneagram at all?
Yeah, I actually am trying to figure out where to take it.
Oh.
I kind of did a quick one on. It was definitely not the right site. I just Googled and found it, so I don't think it's legitimate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to take a legitimate one to say what number I am.
Yeah. Well, two things. Well, the reason I bring it up is because it makes me think of what I've heard about the 6 style on the Enneagram, where they're like the loyal person, the person that's kind of down to ride, but they also are the people that are most prone to worst case scenarios and prepping for them. I listened to an Enneagram podcast where they described the 6 style as the best person to sit next to on the plane. Cause if anything happens, she's got an EpiPen, a tracheotomy kit, she's down to ride for any scenario on the airplane or whatever. Or someone told me, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that was pretty close to it. It's either 5 or a 6 or in between. So
okay, yeah.
Say that, it's clicking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you bring up a good point about the test. That was the second thing I was going to say is I'll put a link in the show notes to a test. And I can awesome. Email or text you. There's a test that I've used kind of in different ministry settings that has been helpful. There's actually 2 tests I could throw in there and you could pick. But that could be a cool thing for folks listening. I feel like almost everybody that we've interviewed so far has kind of inadvertently just dropped the Enneagram in there. So maybe it'd be good to just provide that to our listeners to join the conversation, learn the secret code.
Great.
But cool. So your mom, someone who's adaptable, brings survival instinct. You feel like you learned that from her?
Yeah.
Who would be your other 2 influential people?
This is going to be I'm just playing it safe or something, but I'd say my dad.
Good.
He's just been through a lot, but he's one of those people that, when you're just somebody that's just super honest, at all times, he won't really necessarily find the easy way if he doesn't know or but he's just so humble in things that he does. Just that aspect of it is really nice because in a nutshell, I'm actually from Bangladesh, so I'm an immigrant. And my dad had come here and, there was quite a few years that we were separated and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a complete, reset in his life. And he had to do it multiple times, and it was done for faith reasons. And it's crazy because, not many people are resilient enough to make it. And it's just a blessing to see him be successful and stuff and, set roots in another place and actually make it.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Wow.
That's really cool. So you were born in Bangladesh?
Yeah, I was. So I moved here in 2000. It was about 10, 11. It was in between. Moved in December. Yeah. So, yeah, I used to be able to say half of my life, but now that I'm 32, it just feels like years ago.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You said 2010 or 11 is when you moved to the States?
No, 2000.
Oh, okay. Oh, 2000. Okay. When you were 10 or 11. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. And so your dad kind of came over before you and your mom and stuff?
Yeah. So he moved here in 1993.
Oh, wow.
So by the time we were able to all be together, it was 7 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Years. Yeah.
Oh, that's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty resilient to pick up and start a brand new life in a brand new country.
Yeah. And it's crazy when I mentioned humble back in the day, cause we had a pretty good lifestyle there. We we weren't like super rich, but I'd say like middle class. We had home and stuff. Both of my parents are working parents. Like as long as I can remember, even being like a kid, they're always just kind of gone and working. My mom was a nurse. My dad was a PA. So they're very much involved. And being in a small village, they worked in a mission hospital.
Oh, neat.
They're pretty much like very much giving of their time. So, with that stuff, they're not practicing their career here due to like the educational stuff, paperwork and certificates and things like that.
Yes.
So they kind of have to give that up too, because if they're practicing that stuff here, I mean, they would be a little bit more successful. So yeah, it's amazing. It blows my mind.
Yeah, just that they would kind of like take the
let
low
it
road
all go, completely let that stuff go. And like the other day, I was showing my kid like pictures, just like old pictures from like when I was a kid and stuff. There's like a picture that my dad is like operating on somebody.
Wow.
And like the page over, he's working at a gas station in Florida, minimum wage.
Yeah.
So it's like the contrast,
My goodness. Yeah.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, what would you say, like, would the short version of like what brought him to the States?
Just like stability, persecution. Like he's a first generation Muslim convert. So it was pretty hostile. His family was not very kind with that situation.
Yeah.
And then the place that we were almost permanently residing, that mission hospital like had change of leadership, and a lot of like employees are kind of like let go and stranded, and to be able to get a job and like come back up, like it's very hard to be a minority and do that in that situation. So a lot of those things are motivators.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty intense. Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Who would you say is the third most influential?
I have to say my wife. I feel like she puts up with me and everything. And I'm just so glad I found her, because man, right now with all this like online dating and seeing pictures on your phone and swiping and stuff, it would not work. So it's kind of like a relief. But like honestly though, like she's also so adaptive. Like there's like a pretty good theme going on here. Like everyone's just so adaptive. Like coming into our house, she had to take on like the cultural differences and all that stuff. And I feel like people don't navigate that very well. Yeah. But things are just so smooth. I can't even explain it. So yeah. So that means things are working when there's no, trouble.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how did you guys meet? You guys didn't meet online?
No, we did not meet online, but we met at Calvin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we went to Calvin together. But this is after high school, kind of like the in between, like before you start college. They do like a summer, like a program for minorities. So it's like a scholarship program. You go and take like a college course, and the credit is for you to use if you go to Calvin. And on top of that, you get like some financial gift to be able to use that to go towards your tuition. So it's all like dependent on how you obviously do in the course, and like if you're doing well, you're making it. If not, so basically that's the thing. And funny thing is, like when that starts, it's a program like that really like addresses like how like identity affects you, and 'cause there's a lot. I'm like digressing right now, but like I used to be RA at Calvin, but like it seemed like there was a lot of like identity issues, not I'm not talking about like personal, maybe sexual or something like that, but just like who you are, like as a person.
I totally get it. Yeah.
Like kids that probably were like adopted.
Oh,
didn't accept like themselves because they like that kind of stuff. So this program really like works well and like telling you like everything's like good, like it's good to be different, and like, this is God's world, like So basically that's kind of how it started. And funny thing is, when that stuff like we got there, it's like one of the last things in my like priorities, being a recent senior graduate, because I just wanted to hang out with my friends before school started. So it's like one of those things I signed up for, and it was very much locked down because they almost like do like a reset on who you are and bring you up to that. So a lot of it is closed, so you don't have any communications with like people outside. You really bond well with the people that are inside, so you get to know a lot of people in like very different levels and stuff.
Wow.
So it was a very cool experience. And through it all, I'm just kind of like rolling my eyes. I can't get out of here. Like, can't wait till I get out of here and be done with all this stuff. I'm not going to really like meet anybody and have like meaningful relationships. That's not what I do. Right. So that's kind of like how I went into it. And long story short, I met her and I had no intentions to like pursue her. And I think that's what made it kind of like flow naturally, because, previous experience of I'm finding somebody, then I'm pursuing that person, and then things go okay and then not so okay, and then it just fluctuates. But here it just kind of naturally happened, and that's why it just felt so great. And somehow it's like a one-shot wonder.
Yes, I totally get it. That's cool. And your wife's name's Danielle, right?
Danielle,
I don't think we've said her name yet. And so are you saying like you met her in that program where you guys were kind of all like locked into this kind of identity, kind of minority thing? Yep.
So we met there, and we didn't really have like classes together or anything. But we had like lunch together once in a while. We'd hang out with a group or two, and that's kind of how I got to know her. So
nice.
Yeah. When you don't pursue, you don't have that weight of, pursuing somebody over your head. So I think it works out better. Just a guy tip,
Yes. No, that totally makes sense. Cool. So what ways do you feel like being married to Danielle has shaped you?
Well, first of all, she has, given birth to 3 children of ours. That's amazing in and of itself.
Yeah, heroic.
Can't do that. And she is also a stay-home mom right now. And that is also something I couldn't do. So there's a lot happening. And if she were to just like not be here right now, I think a lot of things would just be like visible, how like incapable I would be and how I would handle things. Yeah, because like when COVID started, we kind of like had plans with our kids, and I did like almost like a homeschool thing, and like right now I feel like I'm so ready to send my kids back to school. Just take them all. Yes. Yeah, and the cold weather might have to be blamed for this.
Sure.
They're not really going out as much.
Right.
So they're just crazy. And I think they're also like developing and getting older. So they are like changing. And I think that's hard to grasp, because when things are like normal pre-COVID, like you don't catch that. Things just kind of blend in a blur.
So much going on
right now. Right now we're just kind of like stuck together. I feel like that change is happening, and I'm like not like, I don't know how to like prepare my content for them and like be there for them, because some nights are just crazy, some days are just crazy.
I totally get it, man.
Take them to school.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
No, I totally get that. So it sounds like Danielle carries a big load in your family, and you lean on her a lot.
Oh, yes.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, the next part of the interview is two locations that have shaped you into the person you are today.
Well, definitely in Bangladesh, because I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely helped a lot in like how I see things and how I perceive people, because the country is just so diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's just like so many different types of beliefs. There's different religious backgrounds. There's different types of people. Just diversity in general. Like I feel like I'm not doing justice on like describing all the different things. Like different languages. Like you could go from one corner to the other and it's like complete, like something different. So I think just being exposed to that helps me a lot, like how I like perceive people in general and how like I see changes, or like, you know, like with the like current events here, like racism, say it be that, or you know, something political, and the struggles of that stuff. I just feel like it just like preps me, because I was exposed to so many different things. Like I don't feel polar on one side or the other, because it just makes me feel like we can all do this. Like this is easy. It's not that difficult. So hopefully that's making sense.
Yeah, you sound like it kind of like diversity was like kind of like your baseline growing up.
Yeah, and you know, I've had friends as kids that were Hindus, and some were more conservative and some were not. And the same thing, like I had friends that were Muslims, and some were more conservative and some were not. And yeah, like it really does change your worldview. Like not everyone's out there to do evil, and not everyone's out there to like dismantle your freedom.
Yeah.
It's such a sad thing to just like put your entire belief in one little point and just like, you know, go forth with that.
Yes, I totally get it. Yeah, there's something like it like alleviates like so much like fear, pressure when you're like, when you know a real human from like the other side or the other demographic or, you know, whatever. It takes out all the kind of like mythology or I don't know, fear of the unknown. You see that they're people, even if there's differences there. That's super good. Cool, man. What will be your second place?
Well, definitely here.
Grand Rapids,
West Michigan. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll do like a Mike Bartlett bingo here. It's the holy huddle.
It was a little less diverse in West Michigan than Bangladesh, I would think.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Churches per capita. Oh my gosh, man. I think, when I was growing up, I didn't really go to church, like consistently. It was probably like once in a good like holiday, because a church, like a bigger church, was out of our town. We'd have to like make it a trip. So I remember like going for like Christmas and stuff like that. So the sheer number of churches and the people, definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Well, just like being a kid and moving here, there's definitely culture shock. And then other than that, you know, everything is different. I mean, I was just like kind of thrown into the school, and I somehow made it.
Yeah, wow.
Crazy. I mean, it helps that, you know, where I grew up, they teach you English.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you start going to school. So language wasn't the biggest problem, but it had its challenges. I had to learn the isms of the American English.
Yeah.
A lot of my English was basically grounded in like the British English.
Oh, sure.
Pronunciation. I speak differently now than I did when I moved here.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm like digressing a lot.
Oh no, this is great stuff, man. This is like such a cool story.
Yeah.
Talk about talk about a holy huddle. It's just cool to hear a different.
But like, if I were to like put everything aside, like the cultural shock, and just just focus in on church, I would say this is like a place where I went to church like consistently.
Oh, sure.
I never really had, any classes in school or anything to do with like religion, like, especially Christianity. But, when I went to churches here regularly and youth group, things are super weird. Okay.
Go on.
That's not what I do every day.
Yeah.
And youth groups in general, like, I don't know if I got much out of it. Maybe it was like, maybe youth groups are designed to like get things out of kids' systems and like a safe space. But it was super weird. I don't even know how to explain it. Like crazy weird, like burning couches and
oh my goodness,
praising the Lord at the same time somehow.
Dancing around a burning couch.
Yes. I mean, talk about pagan, right? I mean, the kids are having a blast.
Yes.
But the point is, I never got to do anything like that, like where I'm from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. There's a lot of fire involved in my youth group experience too.
Yes.
You're gonna talk about that.
Fires, Doritos, and Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's so funny. Tools of the ministry, I guess, in the youth group.
Yeah, right.
So was there like a kind of a moment in church once you got to West Michigan that you feel like was a spiritual breakthrough for you or anything?
Yeah, that was actually perfectly timed. I was kind of going to cover that.
Perfect.
Even through like going through churches and stuff like that, I never really like felt like I was really involved or really did much.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like faith walks go, I don't think I really took it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
It was much later in time that like faith like felt more real.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go as far as to say like it was probably like more recent than, being in my crazy whirlwind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Something would affect me, but it was more later in life, like me getting married, closer to at that time.
Yeah.
Where things like really got real. So, yeah. Long story short, church, moving around and stuff, did nothing for me until things got real, like before I got married. And that's when it felt like God revealed himself to me very closely. And it always sounds weird when I say this because, as time went by and stuff, sometimes I like look back to that and I question it because of my lack of faith as a human being. And it's sometimes sad because like even now I'm just like thinking about it in my thought bubble here. And it's like, oh man, like this is how I felt. This is how I was changed. And now I'm like, wait, I did that? Like, that's weird. Yeah, that's intense, man. It's always intense to kind of walk back through your story and like, oh, what really happened there? Are you saying you're kind of like you like think back to that time, like around the time you got married, where you feel like God became real and you're like, wow, did that really happen? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, but like the experiences that I had, like that led up to it. Like it almost seems unreal and like why? Like even like if I try to like sit down with somebody and like maybe explain this over a few hours, like as I, spit this stuff out, like I begin to like doubt myself and this whole thing because it's so obscure. But it feels like so crazy. Like this is what I remember, but it feels like too crazy to be true. Is that kind of what you're saying? Right. Yeah. And I know it's totally to do with my lack of faith because I'm weak when it comes down to it. But I'm grateful for amazing grace. That's right. Cool, man. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Well, that leaves us with one experience in our 3-2-1 interview. Is there like one story, one experience that comes to mind as really influential in making you the person you are today? Man, that's a hard one.
It is.
kind of like on the spot. Like as much as like I feel like I've had other experiences than just like relocating, but I always feel like that relocation is a pretty big thing that has happened.
Especially at age 10 or 11, that's huge.
Yeah, and I would say it definitely shaped like how I see things, how I value things, and like what my preferences are and stuff like that.
Can you give an example of that, like how it's shaped your values or preferences?
Yeah, so like, for example, like if we, let's say, went camping or something, just thinking out loud right on the spot.
Yeah, go for it, man. Okay. Safe space. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. And like, like somebody didn't bring a bed or I didn't have a bed, I wouldn't care if I had to sleep on the ground. Like that's totally okay. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But, if something goes missing, say from like a kid's perspective, how like people like freak out.
Yes.
In that level, like I feel like I'm more like just adaptive and like okay with more things than and I don't let it like get to me. So
that's cool. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I would definitely not call myself the free spirit because I've seen some free spirits in my life. They are at like, much higher status than I am.
Yeah.
But I can be pretty versatile. Yeah. So like if I were to be like, if you just pick me up and just drop me somewhere on the planet, I don't know, somewhere in Africa or something, I think it would be okay. Sure, there would be struggles, but I think it'll be okay.
Yeah. That's an awesome perspective, man. Yeah. Yeah, you think about the diversity you experienced in Bangladesh and then just like the like mind-blowing hugeness of the world to anyone, even an adult, let alone a 10-year-old kid, by moving to a different hemisphere. If I could see that making you just be like, people adapt and it'll be okay. That's awesome.
Yep.
Very cool, man. Well, I'm curious, we can, you can punt on this question or we can edit this out or whatever, but we are a pretty, ethnically homogenous church family here at Redemption City. What would you say, like, how has that affected your experience, or what would you say to the church just kind of regarding that like diversity issue?
I would say like it doesn't bother me because it's not forced. And I feel like when it's forced, a lot of things can like veer off in the not so comfortable zones.
You're talking about when like the homogenous stuff is forced.
Yeah, right. Because some churches' mission is like, oh, we're going to like be diverse. I'm going to go seek these kinds of people and that kind of thing. I can totally see that. But for us, like, I feel like that's not what we're trying to do. But at the same time, like if somebody different came along, I don't think we'd reject them. We have some really good people in our group, and I feel like we'd embrace them.
Yes.
So in that, I have a lot of comfort. But at the same time, like when you take into context, like where we are located and like the type of people that would prefer our church, that gets really specific all of a sudden. like
yes.
Younger people, the neighborhood that we're in, it's kind of in between the younger people buying homes to like some old money. So it gets interesting. There's not a lot of diversity there, like in between like Southeast End and like your EGR right over and you cross Plymouth, your houses are like $1 million.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting place to be. And Grand Rapids in general is, going through gentrification.
Yes.
For so long. There's definitely negative outcomes of that. But like, as far as like diversity goes, like I don't know if there's something our church could be doing to be better. Is it just me being comfortable in all the things I just said earlier?
Sure.
and just like, writing this and feeling like everything's fine.
Yeah.
Is this like bad of me? I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't judge that. Should I be pursuing and seeking people that are different than me? That's a question.
Yeah. I hear you, man.
Yeah.
Well, I asked that question kind of on multiple levels because, like you being from Bangladesh and being an immigrant and stuff, like you are, some degree provide a very different perspective than I think a lot of folks in our church. So that's a gift to us. And then I think you bring up a really interesting concept because, I don't think anybody in our church would be like, yeah, we don't want non-white, 30 something people to come to it. Nobody's like, that's what we're going for or whatever. But to your point, like kind of our location and kind of our culture as a church, like that's what is appealing. That's who our church appeals to. And so
people that are speaking like our church, a lot of the time there's this like direct result of like, oh, I just came from Acts 20:29.
Sure. Yeah.
And like, I just say that because every person like in earlier years when we started going here that I met, like you run into somebody, introduce yourself. Oh yeah, how'd you find this Acts 29?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Do you have it?
Yes.
So you're gonna get just 29 people, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not complaining about it. I love it.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I totally get it. Well, yeah, it makes me think of this is like long term down the road, but I talked to a pastor kind of near the Redemption building that we're renting, who is Pastor Chase at Unison Church, and he's I think he called himself a race coach. He's like a certified race coach, where it's kind of like his side gig from being a pastor as he like consults with organizations. I think he said mostly businesses to kind of like look at the like kind of nuts and bolts, like things that the cultural things that the company does that might either help or hinder, minorities or diversity from kind of happening there. And so it'd be fun to kind of explore that and what that would look like for us as a church and all that.
Yeah, that's definitely trending, with the current events.
Yes.
Even like for me at work, I feel like there's people that were brought in and just kind of like did little like mini TED Talks kind of thing. All that stuff. So
interesting.
It's an interesting time to be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. Well, I think this is some great stuff. Super cool to hear a little bit more about your story and your parents and immigrating and all that stuff. So I appreciate you being bold enough to join us on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem.
And give Danielle a big hug and way to be a stay-at-home mom hero during a pandemic. And
will do. Yeah, like today, I just like had all my calls, went up there. There's like a food prepared for me on a plate. To go, so I could just like eat and leave. I didn't even clean up after myself today.
Wow. True confessions. Well, it was great to be with you, Johnny. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you soon. Hopefully we get this vaccine and you guys can.
Oh my gosh, that would be great.
Yeah, break out, and we'll have a cookout or something. But well, it was great to hear your story, Johnny, and thanks to all of you out there listening. I hope this was encouraging to you and just a great touch point for us as we just try to stay connected and be the church in this pandemic COVID season. Have a great week.